Good evening, everybody. Tony Brooks again. So I'm working with the student, and we're working on increasing his distance. And part of that is also increasing his range of motion. So I brought up Dustin Johnson here, who, as we all know, hits the ball incredibly far. And there's a couple of things that we can learn of how he does it, and why you probably should not try to emulate what he does. He's a different kind of person, and he can get in these positions that most of us just dream about. So we're going to start with that setup. The setup position, you can see it's fairly neutral in terms of his body. There's no extreme tilting position. He's bent over probably close to 45 degrees, so it looks pretty normal. What we can notice is, however, his grip is extremely strong with that left hand. If he was wearing a watch, you could probably almost see what time it is, if people wear watches anymore. But if you take a look at it, as he takes the club back, this is where things get a little bit unique. So a slight bit of forward press there. So he doesn't get a lot of turn right away. He almost sets the club right away, and then right about there is when he gets his wrist to kind of hinge back naturally. Club face is slightly open to his spine angle. You can see that club face should be in his spine angle. I'll bring my little pointer up here. So that club face should match that spine angle. It's slightly open, maybe 1 or 2 degrees, but from this point is where he starts to get all his turn. So he's set himself up. Arms are going away from his body, and I explained why he has to clear a lot of room for himself to move through the ball. Now he gets that turn, so you see all of a sudden the one-piece turn comes a little bit later. We get to the very top of his swing, and this is a unique position where I see a lot of strong long ball hitters get to, hands very high to create the room that's necessary, because he's going to have an increase of tilt, which is much more than his starting position. That bowed left wrist. So what that bowed left wrist does is it basically strengthens your loft. You basically de-lofted the club, and you're starting to point left towards your target. So there's only really one way to cure this. He cannot release the club face like most other tour pros do that don't have this position, and most of us do. If he were to do that, he would rope hook this golf ball. So he almost has to block it, and I'll kind of explain it as we get down to the impact point. But from this point of view, he looks pretty solid. I mean, if you just look at this side, it's like, okay, that's a nice turn. He's definitely got that X factor going on. This is probably 40 degrees. This is well past 90, so it's about 100. So he's probably got about 60 degrees of X factor. And then on the downswing, I think he stretches a little bit more right about here, so you can see that transition. He's starting to open up his hips, and he's trying to hold those shoulders back there to get that separation going. But what you notice is his shoulder tilt is actually increased. He's not as level as he was in terms of his positioning. He's actually starting to dive down into the golf ball. So there's really only one way for him to go, and that's starting to increase his tilt under with his right shoulder. So as he starts to turn through, you can see that bowed left wrist is still in position. He's dropped the club in place. Club face is still shut a little bit, and you can tell by this position it should be kind of matching that left forearm, and it's a little bit shut now. So again, he's only got one thing to do, and that's just turn hard and tilt under. So this is one position that most of us cannot do. Club face is still, it's relatively square now to his body. He's starting to tilt. You can see that left shoulder starting to, the right shoulder starting to tilt under. Hips are driving out the way. He's creating a lot of room, which is why his hands have to go up and down and not so much around, more so than most people. Comes down into impact. You can see daylight in between his hips and his forearms, which means his body's shifting back, pulling back around. His right shoulder's dipping under, pushing his hands out in front of him. And this is pretty unique, because if you take a look at the center of his chest and draw a straight line to his hands, he's right where he needs to be. But the golf ball's gone already, and he still has lag. So you can see how he's delaying his lag, he's delaying his release, because that golf ball would just go hard left if he does. So he almost holds that as long as he can while his right shoulder goes under, and you'll really see it past impact. So this is one position where I really do not recommend, unless you have a body like him that is also working out, stretching, making sure to take care of the vertebrae. Take a look at the spine. So that's basically the center of his spine. You can see the spine going down the shirt, comes back around and hooks back under here. So that is an extreme angle for most amateurs. To get to that, he has to pull his whole lower body out of the way to tilt underneath. And the way the back is made up, you have your cervical, your thoracic, and your lumbar. So the thoracic is the centerpiece. Now the thoracic can really maybe move about 40 degrees both ways. The lumbar, which is the lower part, can only move about 12 degrees. So for most people to get in this position, puts the lower back at compromise, and that's why we have a lot of lower back issues in golf, and especially for the juniors. And I see a lot of junior elite players reach a point where their body just cannot be in the same position as when they were younger, and I see a lot of lower back, all the LT regions start popping out, and they actually destroy their golf swing and destroy their future, because some of the coaches are trying to put them in this position to get the golf ball to go far, but your body just cannot hold up to it over and over again. Now, as I say that, Dustin Johnson is a freak, and if you know him, don't tell him that, because I know he can probably come on and do some damage to me, but he's a freak, and he can get in this position over and over again. The unique thing too, though, is once you see this follow through, you see there's that tilt. He's released the club at this point. The golf ball is way out in front of him over here. It doesn't matter now, but this is more for just getting himself back into an upright position. As he comes back through, we're going to pause the club right about there. And this club face now is actually open to when he started, and that's because now his left wrist is cupped and it's not bowed. So he is swinging unique. He actually goes from closed to open on his follow through, versus most touring pros and most really good amateurs go from open to closed. So the moral of this video is basically you can swing many ways to create power. It's just pure luck. I mean, I don't know if anybody taught him this, or maybe he started when he was younger with a severely strong grip and he just learned how to tilt under, and his body developed around that, and he just got lucky. I don't mean lucky with talent, I just mean lucky with protecting his body. It would be interesting to see how long his body can sustain that, but with today's technology and the way these tour pros work out, I'm sure he's going to be fine. But just wanted to give you guys a little insight of how that person strikes a golf ball with all the power that he can create. I would not recommend doing that unless you are working with somebody that knows what they're doing, that understands how the rotation of the three areas of the back work, that doesn't compromise your health, because it might look pretty, but will it stand the test of time? And the older you get, the worse your back becomes. So hope that helps you guys out. Little quick video. And I will see you soon. Fairways and greens, everybody.